Elimu ni afya ya roho. Il n'y a pas de traduction prévue pour le Swahili.
So it seems there's no translations for Swahili.
Voilà, certains en tout cas.
But some might have understood anyway.
L'éducation est le remède de l'âme.
Education is the remedy of the soul. And I would add of the body.
Messieurs, mesdames,
ladies and gentlemen,
soyez les bienvenus à cette conférence
welcome to
organisée par
this
Educate,
conference organized by
VVOB,
Educate, VVOB, because health,
et le gouvernement belge.
And the Belgian government.
On vous souhaite tous la bienvenue.
We
Ceux
are
qui sont
welcoming you
venus par loin, ainsi que
all,
ceux
those who have come from
traversé
not
mer
so far
et ciel pour
away,
nous rejoindre aujourd'hui.
and those who crossed seas and skies to join us today.
Comme vous le savez,
As you know,
cette conférence vise à explorer les liens étroits et
this
complexes
conference aims at exploring the complex
l'éducation.
and close link between health and education in the current polycrisis context. It will be about the mutual influence
Entre ces deux secteurs.
between these two
Avec un focus
areas.
particulier
And we will most
sur
specifically
les
focus
pays à revenus faibles et moyens.
on low and medium income countries.
La conférence mettra en lumière les différentes stratégies et
The
approches
conference will highlight these strategies and cross approaches, the perspectives that are efficient to meet the transforming role of education in the public health improvement. It will also explore how collaboration between these actors of health and education, of international cooperation, can help build sustainable, inclusive, and resilient education systems. We will have a very rich day today, and I hope you are in good shape, that you have not eaten too much sweet, because this will be a very rich and long day. But then after that, it's the weekend, so we can afford it, I'm sure. The day will start with an opening session and the speech of Evelyn Machelain from Annabelle, Sven Roems, the General Director of VVOB, and Stéphane de Batzelar. We also have the honor to have a very special guest with us today. Some of you know him, and he talks in different conferences. He can take us along so that we have a common view, and not only in a materialistic way, but he can also show us different approaches of health and the knowledge of people who were neglected for a very long time. I told you this was an inclusive conference, and this is why Calixto, during his keynote speech, will explore that dimension. Libin Wang as well will talk about that.
Aujourd'hui, ce n'est pas une journée simple non plus.
Today is not an easy day.
Mental Health Day.
Today is the World Mental Health Day.
Donc, et il y aura dans l'après-midi, il y aura un groupe.
In the afternoon, one of the group will deal with that issue. And we will see how we can contribute to this interesting issue which is not taken into great consideration in some regions of the world. Thank you, everybody, for joining. And I am certain that this day will be very rich because of all your contributions, also because of the keynote speeches and the panel that will be here today. Also, working groups you will take part in. We are slightly late, so I reduced my speech because I like speaking a lot. I'm always told that I'm very talkative. So I just want to introduce Mr. Sven Rooms.
Distinguished guests, dear colleagues and friends, it's an honor to welcome you to this 15th Annual Educate Conference. Each year, this gathering gives us the opportunity to reflect on the role that education and international cooperation play in shaping our world. This year's theme, When Health Educates and Education Cares, could not be more timely nor more important. When we speak about education and health, we're not speaking about two separate worlds. No, these are threads woven tightly together. A child who is healthy is more likely to learn. A child who is educated is more likely to stay healthy. Over the past few decades, the international community has made remarkable progress by recognizing this connection. Under the MDGs, for example, we saw child mortality rates halved between 1919 and 2015. And on the education side, global literacy among young people rose steadily. And the number of children out of school dropped by tens of millions. Since 2015, UNESCO reports an additional 110 million young people in school, and 40 million more youth are completing secondary school now than a few years ago. And these are not abstract achievements. They were the result of deliberate policies backed by donor commitments and international solidarity. International cooperation enabled the training of teachers and school leaders, the building of schools, the integration of gender transformative pedagogies, and the integration of nutrition and health programs into classrooms. It financed vaccines, strengthened health systems, and supported the most vulnerable countries when domestic budgets could not. In many ways, cooperation acted as the glue that held together progress in education and health. The lives saved and the opportunities created are testament to what is possible when the global community acts with purpose. But this year we gather at a moment of real concern. Across the world, including Belgium, governments are reducing their aid budgets. Recent analysis warn that education aid is sharply declining, threatening to reverse much of what has been gained. UNESCO's aid to education monitoring signals the steepest decline since the 1990s. UNICEF projections foresee a $3.2 billion decline in development assistance for education by next year. And that's about a 24% drop from 23 levels. And if that materializes, roughly 6 million more children could be out of school. For sub-Saharan Africa and the least developed countries, the decline is particularly severe. We cannot allow these setbacks to happen. The intersection of education and health shows us that investment in one sector is never only about that sector. Every dollar spent on maternal education yields dividends in child survival. Every school meal served in classrooms, it improves both nutrition and classroom performance. To cut aid to these areas is to undercut the very foundation of human capital on which societies depend. That's why we urge the Belgian Minister of Development Cooperation to put education and health at the core of his future policy and practice. And that's why this conference is so important. It's not only a forum for exchange, but also a platform for a collective call to action. We must remind our governments, our partners, and ourselves that aid to education and health is not charity. It's an investment in stability, prosperity, and dignity for all. So please, no more budget cuts to education and health. And we must work together to protect those investments, to innovate in how we deliver them, and to ensure that no community is left behind. As we open this 15th Educate conference, let us carry forward the conviction that education and health are not competing priorities, but mutually reinforcing imperatives. Let us defend the progress that has been made, and let us commit together to building on that. Because when a child is healthy, they can learn. And when a child is educated, they can thrive. And that's the vision that we are here to protect. I wish you all an inspiring and productive conference.
I would like to welcome Evelyn, the masculine.
Dear partners, dear guests, dear friends, dear colleagues, we're really happy to receive you here in the conference center of Enable. For those who don't know Enable, it's the Belgian Agency for International Cooperation. And during COVID, we actually took advantage, because everyone was home working, to refurbish this place and to rebuild it in the idea of a conference center, of a hub where both international partners but also Belgian partners can exchange, can foster partnerships on the international education. And this is exactly what we had in mind, to have networks coming here and exchanging with each other and foster partnerships for the future. And so we're really happy to receive this conference here. And we have always been a very loyal member of Educate for the past 15 years. But we've also been a very active member for Because Health. And so we're very happy that this is not the first time, actually, that these two networks come together. It's the second time on issues that interconnect very much. And for me, if I see the landscape, especially in Belgium, it's really both education and health are the two sectors where most partnerships are fostered, I find, that are best organized to seek collaboration, not only in networks. It's not only talking, it's also in concrete projects. There's no health project that we do with Enable where no other Belgian partner is involved. And we have extremely interesting collaborative projects, for example, the Regional Teacher Initiative, the Teach to Empower Initiative with both VVOB, APV and other partners. So this is really what we think is extremely important and even more important in these very messy times. And we live in messy times. We live in times of global challenges. And what is typically about global challenges, the definition is that these are major trends that transcend national borders, that you cannot solve alone, where you need international action to address it. And if you don't, they will have serious potential impact. And that is why collaboration is important more than ever, but it's also why problems can no longer be solved in a sectoral way. We have to find cross-sectoral solutions in order to have the lasting impact. And we made a shift from a sectoral approach to a global challenge approach, where we look at all our programs from a more interdisciplinary way. And we focus around 4 global challenges. You have peace and stability, you have economic and social empowerment, climate and environment, obviously, and demographic trends. And we do this deliberately to make sure that we can solve complex problems with interdisciplinary solutions. And so, as Sven already pointed out, this is why we're here, to really look at the interconnection between health and education. And it's obvious, it's about education being a prerequisite for a healthier society. It's about professional training systems in the health sector, which is hugely important. It's about the strong link between education and prevention, and about the link between mental health and academic success. And also, in conflict situations especially, it's about creating safe spaces for learning and healing. And that's why it's not only important to collaborate as well together, but that's what Sven also very much pointed out, to continue to invest in both sectors. And so now to this day. It's a very interesting program. Very much looking forward to the keynote speakers and all the sessions that will be organized. And it's indeed the World Mental Health Day today, but we're also on the eve of the Day of the Girl Child. And this is a key moment. Tomorrow is the key moment of an international mobilization that demonstrates the importance of the promotion of women's rights by ensuring that girls' rights are respected. And I want to refer there to the session we will be organizing on this today on education with sensitivity. And it's about cross perspectives on comprehensive sexuality, education, and menstrual health. And I also want to point something out today. We have some very distinguished guests among this public. We have young participants that are working in the Solidare Hub from our Be Global project. And Be Global is a laboratory of ideas and practices for global citizen education. And the idea is to inspire and to connect and to mobilize both educational professionals and also young people for a more sustainable and just world. And obviously, it's very important it's essential to give the voice to young people. They will be our future, they are the future generation. And we want to reflect with them, and we really invite you, young people, to challenge us throughout the day. And finally, I want to say a word I want to warmly welcome the Palestinian delegation, who is here today. With APV under the guidance. We welcome you very warmly in Enable and in this event. We are very relieved that yesterday there was at least a ceasefire announced. We hold our breath, and we can only hope that there's peace coming. And that is not both in Gaza, but also in the West Bank. And we just want to send you a message that we stand with the Palestinian people. And then I come back to the beginning. Educate 15 years. I wish a very happy birthday to Educate, and I wish you very enriching discussions.
Before I welcome the next speaker, I saw the applause, but it was a shy kind of applause. We are Friday, right? Oh! This sounds more like an applause, right? Okay. So I want to welcome the next speaker, Stéphane de Bachelier of Because Health.
Merci. Donc, mon nom, c'est Stéphane Van Bastelar.
Merci, je m'appelle Stéphane Van Bastola. My name is Stéphane Van Bastola. I'm the chair of Because Health. Talking about anniversary, it's with some emotion that I am back 1 year ago. 1 year ago, Because Health celebrated its 20th anniversary. The Minister Frank van den Broek came and it was a wonderful event. So I was allowed 5 minutes. I'm very happy because Sven and Evelyn said it all, or almost. So I could think about the reason for being of both our networks. I am very happy that Marais came and see us and say, well, we have our 15th anniversary in 1 year's time. Would you like us to do something together? And Magali, the coordinator, and myself said, yes, what a great idea. And we're here because Health celebrates its 21st anniversary, while Educate celebrates its 15th anniversary. You are our small brother, little sister. We're very proud of you. Preparing my reflection today, I wondered what I could say. I could repeat the indicators, but everything was brilliantly said by Sven. So maybe we could take a couple of minutes to think about the reason why we are existing, why Because Health, why Educate. I remembered that in 2024, when Because Health was born, times were different indeed. We had a liberal minister who was fighting for a budget of 4.7% for international solidarity. His name was Armand de Decker. We were testing the antiretroviral. We were coming out of the HIV/AIDS crisis. We were testing antiretroviral on the mother-children transmission. So it was a wonderful time. We were all filled with optimism. We had ideas of education for all. And I took a look yesterday and I thought, how many fatalities were there in armed conflicts? It was about 40,000 a year. This was a time when optimism was the key. It was great, but time has changed. Today, the Flemish government is stopping the bilateral aid. We are burning medications and that a country on the other side of the ocean doesn't want anymore. 15 million euros, it's huge. Belgium will probably stop funding the World Bank. And the same Liberal Party who had a good Ministry of Communication, of Cooperation, wants a very small budget with a lot of zero after the comma. The world is divided, it's polarized, it is ill-managed. And that is my reply to this question. Why Because Health? Why Educate? We are small indeed, but we are great at the same time. What is our reason for being? I think that we are connecting. We are not dividing. We are fighting against silos. Connecting the first values. We are sharing information for decision based on evidence rather than investing on
Et troisième élément, et Sven
disinformation.
l'a dit aussi,
Sven
nous
said
sommes
so
là
as well as a
aussi
third
avec un
item
agenda
is that we do have
d'influencer les agendas, d'influencer les
an
politiques,
agenda
et je
of
pense avec un certain
influencing
succès. On
policies,
peut
and
jamais être
we have
100%
some
sûr, mais
success
je suis
there. You can
convaincu
never be
que les petits
100%
grains
sure,
que nous mettons
but I
vont nous
am
prouver
convinced
que ça
that
apporte quelque chose
the
à
seeds
la
we
fin
are
de la
sowing
dynamique mondiale. Mais
brings
voilà,
something to the
je
global
pense qu'en conclusion,
dynamics.
nous sommes
As a
plus pertinents
conclusion,
que jamais
I believe that
parce
we
que
are more relevant than
on
ever.
parle de connecting,
We
de
are
sharing et de
talking about
influencing.
connecting,
Et c'est
sharing,
tellement
and
important
influencing.
qu'aujourd'hui,
And that
si
is
nous
just
voulons
so
quelque part donner un
important
contrepoids
today.
à
If
certaines choses
you
qui se passent
want
aujourd'hui
to
dans ce monde. Et sur
counterweight
ce,
some of the
bah
things
oui,
that
bien
are
sûr,
happening
joyeux
today in
anniversaire
the world.
à
So,
Educate.
of course,
Belle fête.
I want to wish a
Belle
happy
conférence sans doute.
anniversary
Ça va être
to
hyper intéressant.
Educate. I'm
Je
sure
suis
this conference
convaincu
will
et
be
ravi
highly
d'être
interesting.
parmi vous
I am
avec plein de
delighted
membres
to
de
be
Because
with
Health.
you, with
Bonne
all the
fête. Et puis, ah
members,
oui, un dernier
with the
communiqué. Je
members
vois
of Because Health.
Magali qui me regarde.
And then Magali is
Nous
also
avons une conférence
staring at me.
Because
We
Health
have a
2026
Because Health
autour de la
conference in
thématique Do
2026
We Care. C'est
about
très
the
ouvert comme
topic
thématique,
called
mais voilà
Do We
déjà une
Care? It's
invitation,
a
une main
very
ouverte. Si
open
certains dans la
one,
salle disent
but
ça,
that
ça
is
m'intéresse,
uh,
Magali est votre
a
personne
hand
de
that
contact.
we
Merci à vous.
want
Bonne
to give
conférence,
you.
bonne
Magali
journée, bon
will
anniversaire.
be your contact person. So have a lovely day and happy anniversary again.
Ça, c'était 5 minutes.
That was great 5 minutes.
Voilà, en tout cas, hein, vraiment un très bel appel. Et je pense que dans le
Very
contexte
nice
dans lequel
call.
on est aujourd'hui,
And in the current context,
un appel nécessaire.
it is
Et,
a necessary one,
il doit nous inciter aussi à nous
and it should
mobiliser plus que jamais
help us to get
pour ne
mobilized
pas
more than
couler
ever
sous le narratif ambiant. Donc,
in
merci
order
beaucoup pour
not to
bel appel.
drown in the current narrative.
Notre prochaine guest, c'est
Our next guest
Señor Calixto Suarez,
is Senor Calixto Suarez.
qui va venir partager avec nous
He will
ses connaissances,
share with us
sa vision.
his knowledge, his vision.
Voilà.
Up to you, sir.
Juste le micro, voilà. Hello. Yeah, hello. Yes, you have? Yes, okay.
En primer lugar, pues agradecerle a
First of
todas
all,
las
I
personas
would like to thank
que me han tenido en cuenta para estar
all of you
participar
that
en
have invited me
evento tan
in
importante.
this very important
Que la
event.
palabra educación es como
The
la
concept
máxima
education
palabras que nos llevas pensar mucho y
makes us reflect and build many things.
Yo llevo muchos años viajando.
Calixto needs to speak closer to the microphone because we don't listen to him very well. There is something going wrong with his cables and connection.
¿Sí? Hola. Hello.
Yeah, that's
Sí.
better. Thank you.
Yo hago parte de un pueblo indígena en
I
Colombia.
come from an indigenous community in Colombia, towards the north of Colombia,
We live in
and I
the
represent
north
them,
of the country
this indigenous community in the north of Colombia, because we want to preserve our values and we would like them to be respected and recognized.
Los valores y Desde niños he tenido ese llamamiento, ese
When
sentido
I was a small child, I already felt
hacer algo
the need to do something about humankind, as well as for Mother Earth,
Estamos hablando de la
for our
educación
planet.
relacionados
Now we are talking
a la
about
salud.
education and its relationship with health, its linkages with health,
Separados, unos ni
because
otros.
both concepts go hand in hand.
La educación para nosotros es fundamental y muy importante y que abarca desde una pequeña
Education
escala al gran
can be understood from the grassroots to a higher level.
nosotros.
It has a huge scope. And when we want to talk about education,
La razón de la palabra
if we could really understand the whole meaning of that concept,
lo que
it would be
queremos,
easier to solve
pero
all of our
no lo
problems.
entendemos.
But unfortunately, we haven't understood it
Tiene varias
quite,
escalas o varios
because it's many different
entendimientos.
lines and layers of understanding, of interpretation.
Para nosotros es importante el territorios
For us,
para hablar
the
de
territory is
la
important
educación.
when we talk about education,
Con la
the habitat,
biodiversidad
because it has to do with biodiversity, local
regional.
or regional biodiversity, or even national.
Y también hablar del cuerpo físico humano.
And we need to talk about another layer, which is the physical body and the mind. So there's different angles or perspectives that we need to grasp, and they need to be merged, all those layers, angles and perspectives, in order to fully understand the whole concept of education and find solutions to problems such as climate change.
Que podríamos aprender el ser humano, pues no es una sola escala. Hablamos para bienestar.
We also need to move in a certain level of well-being as men and women. Well-being is important. It is one angle of education, but we need to understand all of those layers, all of those perspectives, those that have to do with the environment and with our planet, including biodiversity.
Yo llevo muchos años conociendo a diferentes culturas.
For many years, I've been learning a lot of things about different cultures, trying to build something to cover everybody's needs, everything that it takes to be harmonized with our body, our soul, our mind, and planet Earth. We, as indigenous communities, understand all of these things in a different way. It doesn't make us any better. It's just another way of understanding the same situations that arise
a lucharnos unos a los otros.
and the realities that make us fight. Indigenous communities have preserved those principles and values, and we don't want to lose them. We want to hold on to them, cherishing life and nature, the human beings. We are here to be happy. This is an important message. And in this context, we need to make a reflection. Where am I? What can I contribute with? In what space am I moving? In what level? in the human level or in nature level, when discussing education and health, when trying to fuse both concepts. If we only remain in the human level, we are abandoning everything else. But we need to give the new generations the value of cherishing water, for example. This is an essential message. Obviously, we can't survive without water as human beings. At the same time, it is important to understand all the different biodiversities that exist in nature. Each and all of them are important. They are not at our disposal. Biodiversity is there, but it is not at our disposal to do whatever we please with it. With this perspective, we need to find solutions.
Porque ellos no expresan con palabras como nosotros, los animales, los biodiversidad.
Animals and plants, they don't express themselves like we do, but they have feelings, and they know what the earth needs to keep functioning. So we need to move around this level of feeling. We need to understand education with feelings. We can talk it spirituality, but it is all about feeling. In what way do I interact with nature? With what feelings? And then we can build more things. And making sure that whatever I do myself is not having a negative impact on anybody else. And always protecting the planet for future generations. This is the fundamental basis for indigenous communities. We don't want to lose sight of this. Indigenous peoples can't lose sight of this reality. And this is my main fight and motivation. I work in different communities in many countries. If we abandon such values, if we don't understand life in its full dimension, then we are losing our roots. And if we are unrooted, we have lost our path as indigenous communities. We identify ourselves through those values and roots for many, many centuries. And we want this to continue. That's why we are fighting in our territories where we live. For example, in my case, we had a constant fight for our own survival, fighting for our territory. The land is like the physical body of a culture. A culture that doesn't have land attached to it is dead. And that's why we are fighting so much for it. But for different situations and circumstances, it has always been very difficult. And this is a problem, a shared problem by all indigenous communities in the world. In as much as I have been able to, I have fought in favor of those values for communities, for indigenous peoples. And this is our way to contribute with humankind, kind and nature. A community, a culture, a people without roots is not alive. And this is the motivation that has taken me to travel to different parts in the world and to get in touch with different cultures.
Haciendo unidad para hacer algo.
We want to create a certain type of unity to do something, to find solutions. I also got in touch with North American, Latin American, European cultures in different continents, and this is our main common denominator, to educate. We need to get trained as human beings of this earth, of this planet. We need to learn to become human beings. We should strive to understand the huge dimension of the earth. By doing so, we will start understanding much better.
Y asimismo hay muchos territorios en diferentes.
There's many areas in different parts of this planet where they don't have a school, they don't have a place to teach children to read and write. And in the past years, we have realized how important it is to understand the knowledge of our ancestors together with the Western knowledge. When we talk about climate change, we need to put everything together, all of our knowledge. It is about the health of the environment and the human beings, and the survival of biodiversity. This leads us to a very deep, fully fledged reflection. And solutions can't be found by a single person. This is a common effort. And always in unity. The unity of indigenous communities and everybody else. We need to stand up together. And this is my contribution. And finally, I just wanted to say that my community has gone through good and bad experiences in the past few years. In 1920, a different mindset was eradicated. God lives in heaven, but we need to work in the planet, in nature, without trees, by planting trees. This mindset led to a conflict, an internal conflict, communities against communities. And this translated into a fight, into a long-lasting fight. And in the year 1984, we managed to expel those people that taught us to speak Spanish. And in 2020, we initiated another confrontation, very unpleasant situations with the government. The Colombian government doesn't understand what are the indigenous values, and this led us to internal conflicts. However, we have managed to find solutions. Unfortunately, we have lost lives in the defense of our existence, our territories, our survival.
pensamientos y de actos. Porque para salvar, para nosotros, hablamos que somos responsables como
We are responsible
en la tierra, responsables
beings
de cuidar
in the earth.
que venimos
It is our
de la
responsibility to cherish this
por ejemplo, en
planet.
Colombia, donde nosotros habitamos, si alguien no conoce, pues
I don't know if you have been in Colombia, but Colombia is the heart of human being, the heart of the planet. If this heart is damaged, is injured, then everybody will be impacted. This is our mindset, and that's why we keep on fighting. And that's why we talk about a general and shared responsibility. We don't want to name culprits or judge people, but it is about having a positive thinking and knowing or being willing to contribute.
Estamos pensando hacer un espacio donde podamos
We would like to create a space where such value exchanges would be possible without losing sight of our roots and without invading each other's values. This is a project that we are entertaining in the past years because we are isolated from the urban centers in our community. And as population grows and children and the youth, they need to get out there and gather a lot of knowledge to avoid potential problems. That's why we are designing this project that I wanted to put on the table. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Seigneur Calixto.
Thank you very much, Mr. Calixto,
Pour ce bel appel
for
à
this
plus d'humanité
beautiful call to more humanity.
dans un monde où chacun veut imposer sa vérité à autre.
In a world where everybody wants to impose their own truth to others, onto others, it brings us to what is really important beyond the ideological noise that is always resounding on the side of the media.
Notre prochain intervenant.
Our next speaker
Vous avez tous compris. Voilà. Donc, Monsieur Wang, Libing Wang,
is
chef de la section
Mr. Libing Wang,
santé et éducation
the head
de l'UNESCO.
Chief of Section for Health and Education at the UNESCO. Mr. Wang, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, colleagues, friends, greetings from Paris. Whether you are joining us in person in Brussels or connecting virtually from around the world, it's my great honor to represent UNESCO at this pivotal Educate International Conference. This year's theme, When Health Educates and Education Cares, speaks directly to the needs of our time. It calls for systems that nurture both our body and mind, recognizing learning and well-being as inseparable foundations of human development. We come together at a critical moment, when often described as a polycrisis, marked by the convergence of multiple interconnected crises unfolding on an unprecedented scale. From persisting health emergencies to protracted conflicts, to the escalating climate crisis, and a resurgence of nationalist policies. These crises do not exist in isolation. They intersect, reinforce, and intensify one another, amplifying their impact on societies everywhere. In this complex landscape, education and health stand out as two vital pillars, not only to help societies survive these crises, but to empower them to thrive beyond them. Today, I will explore the deep connections between education and health, examine the challenges posed by this polycrisis, and share how UNESCO is contributing to global effort to strengthen these interconnected pillars in pursuit of a more resilient and equitable future. The connection between education and health. Education and health have long been recognized as a complementary pillars of human development. At UNESCO, we do not treat them as separate sectors, but as interconnected parts of a holistic system that supports individual well-being, promotes social equity, and advances sustainable development. Education is among the most powerful tools to improve health outcomes worldwide. Through quality education, individuals gain knowledge, critical thinking, and empowerment necessary to make informed decisions about their health, including nutrition, hygiene, disease prevention, and reproductive health. These informed choices led directly to reduced illness and improved quality of life. Conversely, good health is essential for effective learning. Children and youth who are physically healthy, mentally supported, and socially included are more likely to attend school regularly, engage fully, and reach their potential. Without good health, even the most well-designed education systems cannot deliver meaningful learning outcomes. This interconnection was clearly highlighted at the 2022 Transforming Education Summit, where nearly 2/3 of national statements called for urgent action to safeguard the health, well-being, and safety of learners and teachers. This shared recognition is energizing global efforts to embed health promotion more deeply within education systems. Some key research evidence. Recent research compiled by UNESCO and partners offers powerful evidence supporting this integrated approach. For example, the study Learn to Eat Well and Eat to Learn Well shared that every $11 billion invested in school meal program generates an estimated $156 billion in return through improved school attendance and learning outcomes. This illustrates how targeted health investments within education yield enormous social and economic benefits. The 2023 Global Education Monitoring Report revealed that if all girls worldwide completed secondary education, child marriage rates would drop by nearly 2/3. This represents millions of girls empowered to delay marriage and pregnancy, thereby reducing serious health risks. This ripple effect improves not only individual lives, but the entire communities. Research from the Ready to Learn and Thrive report by UNESCO and other UN agencies provides valuable insights. In low-income countries, promoting hand washing and malaria prevention in schools have significantly reduced absenteeism. Addressing bullying and violence can cut school skipping rates by half. Meanwhile, school meal programs have increased enrollment by 9% and attendance by 8%. Additionally, data show that universal primary education for girls could reduce maternal deaths by 2/3, saving approximately 98,000 lives annually. Secondary education completion further decreases child marriages and increases contraceptive youth. These outcomes underscore education as a vital social determinant of health. Integrating health and well-being into education policies and practices. Recognizing these interconnected challenges, UNESCO partnered with World Health Organization to co-launch the global standards for health promoting schools in 2021. This framework offers practical guidance for schools to implement comprehensive health policies, create safe and inclusive environments, integrating health education in curricula, and actively engage families and communities. Building on this, UNESCO and partners from the Interagency Group for School Health and Nutrition will soon launch Planning for Healthy and Thriving Learners, an initiative translating high-level commitments into actionable plans that place learners' health and well-being at the heart of education system. In 2023, UNESCO and UNICEF co-launched the Building Strong Foundation initiative, focusing on learners aged 5 to 12 and beyond. Early education on health and well-being supports improved learning outcomes, child protection, safety from violence, gender equality, and active citizenship. Mental health and well-being, an urgent priority. Today is also the World Mental Health Day, a vital reminder of the growing mental health challenges young people face worldwide. As we observe this day, let's reaffirm that a mentally healthy classroom is just as essential to learning as a roof is to a school. When teachers and students feel safe, connected, and supported, learning truly flourishes. The COVID-19 pandemic exposes and intensified these challenges. School closure and the resulting social isolation and stress led to a surge in anxiety, depression, and other mental health conditions among children and adolescents. Currently, 1 in 7 adolescents lives with a diagnosable mental health disorder, and many more face psychological difficulties affecting learners' learning and development. Yet, many education systems lack adequate resources or capacity to provide psychological support or foster inclusive, mentally healthy environment. Supporting mental health in school is essential, not only as a health issue, but also as a core part of enabling learning environment. Learners who receive emotional and psychological support tend to stay in school longer, participate more fully, build meaningful relationships, and perform better academically. UNESCO has made mental health promotion a central focus, collaborating with partners to develop tools and frameworks that help school create nurturing environments where every learner can thrive. Comprehensive sexuality education, CSE, is widely recognized as essential for advancing gender equality, promoting health relationships, and improving sexual and reproductive health. It has also been shown to positively impact both education and health outcomes. For UNESCO, CSE is more effective and sustainable when delivered as an age-appropriate curriculum-based process that addresses the cognitive, emotional, physical, and social aspects of sexuality. It equips young people with life-saving knowledge and builds the values, skills, and behaviors they need to make informed decisions about their health and well-being. Importantly, it promotes respect for human rights, gender equality, and diversity. CSE empowers learners to understand and uphold their health, well-being, and dignity, build respectful relationships, and recognize their sexual and health rights throughout their lives. Without accurate sexual and reproductive health information, learners face risks that directly affect their education and future. For example, early and unintended pregnancies increase absenteeism, hinder academic performance, contribute to early school dropouts among girls, while also impacting the education opportunities for young fathers. Safe learning environments. We know that violence, including bullying, in and around school, can have serious and long-lasting effect on learners' physical and mental health, educational outcomes, and ultimately their futures. Globally, 1 in 3 learners is bullied at school each month, while data on sexual and gender-based violence in educational setting is difficult to gather. The most recent estimates suggested that around 60 million girls are sexually assaulted at or on their way to school each year. Cyberbullying is also a growing concern, affecting as many as 1 in 10 children. Armed conflicts, whether at the gun or national level, increasingly impacts the safety and the well-being of boys and young men. Given this far-reaching impact on both health and learning, violence is not only a child rights issue, it also carries significant costs for education systems when left unaddressed. Education has a critical role to play in promoting peace, preventing violence, and ensuring that all learners affected by school-based, online, and conflict-related violence receive support in exercising their rights to both health and education. Climate change, a cross-cutting challenge. Climate change is another urgent global issue, deeply connected with education and health. The growing frequency and the severity of climate-related disasters, such as floods, droughts, and heat waves, not only endanger lives and livelihoods, but also disrupt education systems and intensify health risks. The effect of climate change on education and health are well documented. Schools are often damaged and destroyed during disasters, displacing students and interrupting learning. At the same time, health systems come under additional strain. Climate impacts can worsen maternal and neonatal health outcomes, reduce access to contraception, and contribute to a rise in gender-based violence and harmful practices, such as female genital mutilation and child marriage. To address these challenges, UNESCO's Education for Sustainable Development, ESD program, equips learners of all ages with the knowledge, skills, and values needed to understand climate change and taking meaningful action. Through the Greening Education Partnership, the program prepares learners to be climate ready by integrating climate change education across all levels and aspects of learning. It promotes climate literacy, resilience, and adaptive capacity, empowering young people to engage in response at both the community and the policy level. Addressing these complex interconnected challenges require coordinated multi-sectoral and multi-stakeholder action. UNESCO exemplifies this approach by fostering collaboration among ministries of education, health, environment, social protection, and more. The 2023 recommendation on education for peace, human rights, and sustainable development offers a comprehensive framework uniting diverse thematic programs for holistic responses to learners' needs. A prime example is the West and Central Africa commitment for educated, healthy, and thriving adolescents and young people, endorsed in 2023 by health and education ministers from 25 countries. This commitment sets ambitious targets for 2032 to reduce early and unintended pregnancy, HIV, gender-based violence, and education disparity. In closing, I leave you with a very clear and resolute message. Investing in education is investing in health, well-being, equity, and resilience. When education teaches health and health enables learning, we build societies that are not only more resilient, but profoundly more human. Education and health stand as inseparable pillars, fundamental human rights, and essential foundations for building societies capable of confronting and overcoming the complex polycrisis we face today. They are the critical driver of sustainable development, equity, and hope for future generations. UNESCO remains steadfast in its commitment to support member states and partners worldwide to turn this vision into reality. Together, let's advance this shared mission with dedication and collective action. Thank you very much for your engagement, your commitment, and your partnership in shaping a better world through health and education. Thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wang. I hope he still hears us. While I was talking all the time, I forgot to talk to the people who are online, because there are many of them too. So you are not a small community, you are a global community, of course. And some of them are invisible right now, but they are certainly participating. So hello to you. Let's say hello to them, all of you. Hello. We see you, we hear you. Good. Yes. We're going to have a conversation, of course, with interesting guests. And so I would like to introduce, and one of them is, by the way, online. So some of them will be sitting here in these beautiful chairs. I'm sure you want to sit on one, right? Okay, yeah. All right. So online, I think we have Linda Oduor Noah, who is the policy advisor, Public Services Oxfam. Right? So, please. Maybe, if I say my name, would I get the same applause? Omar Ba. Yeah, it's fine, huh? You're right. So, Linda, Senor Calixto Suarez, who is also invited as a panel, a panelist. So, please. Monsieur Schreiber. Ok. Est-ce que c'est confortable? Ouais. Ça va? Ok. And Madame Wolf, Antonia Wolf. Policy Advisor, Oxfam. Right? Oh, I'm sorry. And I would like to invite also Katrina Kreppel, Head of Emerging Infectious Diseases, from Antwerp, the most beautiful city of Belgium. You see people from Brussels. The people you hear complaining, they are from Brussels. So that's what they do. Huh? Right? It's true? Right? It's true. Voilà. Thank you. Do you have... Vous avez de l'eau? Non? OK. Voilà donc le micro. Il y en avait un autre encore. Sorry, I'm going to grab another mic. Yes. OK. Okay, we see Linda. Hello, Linda. Can you speak to us?
Hello. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so say hello to this beautiful audience here looking at you.
Hello,
They give you a
everyone.
great applause. Yes.
I can't see the beautiful audience, but nice to join you today.
Okay. Monsieur Schreiber. Donc à vous l'honneur d'ouvrir.
Mr. Schreiber, you have the honor of opening this discussion. According to the World Health Organization,
sont attribuables en fait aux risques environnementaux. Est-ce comme ça et pourquoi?
are there diseases that can be imputed to climate change?
About technical terms, I'm just better speaking in English, sorry. So the question was about the impact of environmental factors on children and on health. And I just want to also, first of all, thank for being here and educate and Because Health here for organizing this and Belgium really for hosting this. I'm from UNICEF. UNICEF is about child rights. And we are also very much aligned, making sure that it's a multi-sectorial, holistic approach for children. And what we've noticed in the last few years, and that's maybe also based on Calixto's message from earlier on, is the importance of environmental health and the impact on the environment on children. And it's really a unseen crisis because very often children are not really tracked in the impact of environmental degradation. And children are uniquely vulnerable. They have smaller bodies, their immune system is not so fully developed, and they are really much more, a little bit of exposure to toxins and environmental issues can have big impact on their health and also on their education. And in Delhi, in India, often schools are closed down because of pollution. And UNICEF reported that in the last few years, over 250 million children in 85 countries were out of school. Only in 1 month, in April last year, over 100 million children did not go to school because of the impact of heat waves. Many countries, if it goes above 40 degrees, they're closing the schools. And that impacts the education. So really there's the link between planetary health and education is very important. And that's why UNICEF is really working. And thanks for Dr. Wong, also from UNESCO, who provided a lot of good data, really recognizing the issue. So we work with countries to recognize the issue, to strengthen the policies and supporting countries that they can address environmental health impacts. And then we work with the frontline workers, community health workers, teachers that are dealing with the children, to strengthen them, to make them aware of these environmental risk factors. And then we invest in the infrastructure, making sure that the schools are resilient to heat waves, that the primary healthcare facilities are resilient to the new climate change. So, and a crucial fight for all of and a partner in this is really the education sector. So I'm more from the health sector, but for us really it's important to work very closely with the education sector, because education is the most powerful tool to really change the impact for the communities and share the knowledge, and so that people can prepare, and we're going to have a future of children that are aware of these environmental risks and that can go to school. Thanks.
Right. This was an extensive response, huh?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
You don't want to talk to me again?
No, this is the last question you had, so I'm joking. Usually I do those kind of stuff, you know. Anyway, how would you like to react on what Benjamin has just said, seeing that you also, which are the continuous efforts that are being provided on the field? And he was exactly talking about working with community workers on the field and trying to change things. And Calixto has referred to such things also. So what is your reaction?
Yeah, I would say for us, so at ITM, where we are a center of excellence in tropical medicine, what means we have the clinical diagnostics, everybody knows our travel clinic and so on. But what we do actually, what the majority of our work is education, research and capacity building for mainly adults. We have a lot of masters, we have a lot of short courses, and they're targeting people from LMICs, from these areas that are facing difficulties. We're providing scholarships, or the Belgian government is, to enable the people to come, to enable emerging leaders, people that already show capacity, probably because they were helped by your things, and also, of course, by their own drive and by their communities. They come to ITM. We have a lot of students coming just for short courses for 3-4 weeks, but also doing our masters in Global One Health, for example, masters in public health and so on. And our philosophy is that we want to co-create education, co-create capacity, what also means that every student that successfully finishes, goes back home. They become leaders in their communities, but also are part of a very, very strong alumni network. And these alumni then provide, again, education for the next generation, for the next cohort, what means we are working with context-relevant education programs. We are not simply using European developed contexts that are being imported into other areas that are struggling with very, very specific crises, very specific things, not just climate change, but also political issues in the countries. And by co-creating this education, we feel, or we see, that we manage to build better communities, better leadership, very strong impact in health in terms of policy. We have alumni that are health professionals in Ministry of Health, so go into politics, but also go into innovation, for example, and that it stays context specific. Does that answer your question?
Greatly, beautifully. Yeah. You know, it was a little bit shorter than somebody else I know here, Benjamin, but it was okay. No, I would even add another question, because I kind of know a little bit the work of IMT, and I see by example that even locally in Antwerp, that you work with communities containing HIV/AIDS or lung diseases, and that mostly that you involve the community themselves, so they are the actors of their own sensibilization. So that's what you said here. So that's what you do at the international level too, right?
And of course, with globalization and with a changing world, we get a lot of the diseases, the problems, not just human diseases, animal diseases, zoonotic diseases, environmental problems, also more and more here in Europe and in Belgium. So that makes us, we become slowly, in the 4 years that I have been at ITM, I have seen that our expertise has become more and more relevant, unfortunately. But also our expertise has helped to work together with the communities and do this co-creation method. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Senor Calixto? I would, what is your reaction on what has been said here? Because they're talking about co-creation, working with the communities. And you have stressed in your intervention the importance of taking account of the experience, the knowledge of the communities, of the people. How do you react to those great institutions working on issues that you work on also, on a broader level?
Por los tiempos que llevo,
Well,
en los últimos tiempos la gente ha cambiado.
in the past times, I think people have changed.
Más conciencia de lo que
People have become more aware of what we are doing and what we are living through. And this is very important for me.
las culturas valoran sus raíces, sus orígenes.
Cultures always value their origins, their roots, and this is very important too. I appreciate this very much.
Voilà. Merci. Yeah. Thank you for the addition. So you see, he appreciates the work you do. Can you tell us what you do and how you relate to what the actions that I've been doing here by UNICEF and EMT?
Great, nice open question. I can interpret that in any way I want, really.
Yes.
So I represent Education International, which is the global federation of teacher unions. Mm-hmm. We have about 3.33 million members. That's teachers in early childhood education through to higher education, and teachers in about 178 countries. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, teacher well-being has become one of our main priorities in the last years, and it's a growing area of work in terms of the policy work we do, the advocacy work we do, and says a lot about how education systems are doing and how those working in these systems are doing. And I think maybe starting with taking a step backwards, looking at a context where education systems that have oftentimes been underfunded already over decades are now faced with significant additional cuts. And some of the key numbers were shared in the opening this morning. We know what it looks like in terms of official development assistance. But this is not only a question of official development assistance. This is also a matter of austerity policies being implemented really across the globe. And that means that we find ourselves in a situation where health and education, which are really the cornerstones of human dignity, which are really preconditions for a rights-based approach to life, is under immediate attack. And I would actually go as far as to say that the whole notion of a rights-based approach is under attack at the moment. We're actually seeing a number of governments speak out against a rights-based approach to early childhood education, for example. And I think this is something we need to acknowledge, that we've gone from a situation where rights as the common framework that we work within, particularly looking at kind of global policy making. And I think that asks a question from each and all of us, whatever work we do, whoever we may represent, to what extent are we willing to go out there and defend a rights-based approach, and that as the main reason for the need to invest in public health systems and public education systems. And it goes without saying that if we are rejecting a rights-based approach, we are also not in any way able to discuss gender transformative education, another area that I think is very much under attack today. And if you allow me like 1 more minute, yeah?
Okay.
Good. I think we're looking at a real emergency. And I'd love to hear from all of you how we convey that emergency to policymakers. And that's not just the Belgian government, but it includes the Belgian government. So we had some statistics come in recently from 6 countries in Africa. They were looking at the workforce in health and education. It was ActionAid International who did this survey. They surveyed teachers, nurses, doctors. Because of my job, I'm going to quote some of the data on teachers, so apologies for focusing on teachers only. 87% said that they struggled to pay their bills. 60% said that they've cut down on their food shopping because they simply cannot afford to buy everything they need. 78% also said that they work in classrooms. 87% said that they work in classrooms that don't have the necessary materials to actually provide a quality education. And more than 50% of them said that they oftentimes end up buying some of these materials themselves because that's the only way. 42% said that they are hoping to change career very soon. And this takes me to another priority of ours at the moment, the global teacher shortage, the fact that we are currently missing about 50 million teachers in the world. That only includes 1 year of pre-primary and primary and secondary. So it doesn't even look at the full cycle of early childhood education, in which case we would look at a much more dramatic shortage. This is in part because so many teachers choose to leave the profession.
Okay.
And they leave because the conditions under which they have to work are simply impossible. They are forced to work under conditions that make it impossible for them to be the kind of teacher they set out to be. And that means that our work on teacher well-being is in many ways a fight to move away from an understanding of any issues related to health and well-being being individual failures, individual burdens, to an understanding where we recognize that health and well-being is about systemic failures of the system. It's about the failure of governments to invest sufficiently in public education systems.
Okay.
And maybe we come back to...
It was the longest minute ever.
Sorry. But it was a good minute.
But a beautiful minute. Right? Huh? Okay. But it was a beautiful minute. That's why I was listening. Linda, I think you heard the different interventions, and I think that there are some touching points there. Which are the challenges that you are facing concerning health and education, and referring also to what has been said here about the well-being of teachers, the institutional issues, and also the fact that now some strong states are themselves discrediting the institutions that are supposed to support these questions. It's a long question, I know, but I'm sure you can give me an answer there.
That means you're going to give me the 7 minutes that you have not allowed the others, right?
Some people have long minutes, so you can extend too.
Okay, so again, my name is Linda, and I work for Oxfam International on the right to health and education, with a particular focus on the World Bank and the IFC on how they deliver these rights. Also, Oxfam works a lot on the issue of inequality, and I'm also going to talk a little bit about a program we run called Global Education or Global Citizenship. So I think Mr. Wang covered the relationships and interactions between health and education quite extensively, so I'm not going to go into that. And Antonia lined it up quite nicely for me in terms of talking about the systemic issues undergirding some of the challenges that we're facing today. I think 3 things that I noted while my colleagues were speaking and it's nice to see that, we're sort of speaking to the same things, is firstly, the power of the power of public health and public education systems. Usually during a crisis, public services are heavily overwhelmed and inundated, and most of the time they're heavily criticized, and rightfully so in many cases. But yet no one really speaks about the good that they deliver or contemplates the magnitude of the disaster that would befall us if they weren't available as a refuge or as a stronghold. It's worth noting how resilient public systems are. During COVID, public services underwent a decade's worth of digital transformation in a matter of months, and they developed other proactive response systems to manage overwhelming demand. So there are challenges and more can be done, but it's important to trace and understand the power and potential for public services to respond to crisis or the polycrisis, and to speak about this a lot more. I think also it's important to understand the key barriers to public service delivery, and Antonia was touching on some of this. I think the main culprits are generally known: corruption, limited financing, public debt. However, there are latent trends that need our attention and that also play a key role in exacerbating crises. And I think it's important to mention issues like the barriers that the privatization of health and education introduce into a crisis context. And lastly, I want to add another crisis to the mix of crises that we're all facing, and that's the crisis of widening inequality. And I'll ask that a slide be shown for me, and I hope you can see it in the room. The drastic rise in inequality is a major, major challenge. And there are a lot of statistics around this, and I won't go into all of them, but just to name a few: 1.1 billion people living in active multidimensional poverty, 4.5 billion people, or half the world's population, are not able to access essential health services. In fact, 100 million people are pushed into poverty every year by out-of-pocket health expenses. It was mentioned earlier, 272 million children and youth are out of school. Children in sub-Saharan Africa are 14 times more likely to die before the age of 5 than the rest of the world. And to make it all worse, 9 out of 10 countries are implementing policies likely to increase economic inequality. Apart from all of that, there are great shifts in how power and accountability are also being exercised. There's an immense concentration of power and wealth in the world's top 1%, who own more wealth than 95% of humanity. 95% includes all of us in this room, I guess. Powerful corporations and the ultra-wealthy are also shaping global rules to serve their own interests at the expense of everyone else, including impeding international efforts to solve major global problems like the polycrisis, like tax cooperation, like vaccine equity. And why is this a problem? The problem is that rising inequality weakens a society's resilience and capacity to respond to complex simultaneous crises. And I guess the big question is how to fix it. At Oxfam, we run a program, a global education program that offers a useful lens or framework to addressing inequality and the impacts of the polycrisis. Similar to Katarina, it focuses on capacity building. It focuses on students. It's a pedagogical, multidisciplinary, and transformative approach that attempts to address systemic change by taking students on the journey to building a better world. And it does this in several ways, and I'm about to finish. It has 4 key pillars. It looks at, firstly, a critical exploration and examination of root causes and the drivers of inequality. Secondly, it looks at understanding the impacts of oppressive systems and the impacts of privilege, power, and where we all sit in relation to this. And it also looks at who is most affected by these impacts. We spoke about the impacts on teachers just now, who can't afford food, for instance. It aims to foster an understanding of global interdependencies. It encourages systems thinking and understanding of the complex relationships and multiple perspectives around these issues. And lastly, it focuses on hope. We try and make sure that students are supported to reimagine what it means to rebuild differently, and what it means to advocate for positive change with others and starting from their own communities, and then supporting them to exercise their voice and rights in global spaces. So maybe I'll stop there and pass it back to you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for this short 7 minutes. Right? Real disciplined. Yeah. Benjamin, quand tu entends ce que Linda vient de dire, hein, en tant qu'UNICEF,
Benjamin,
en fait la pression qu'il y a.
when you hear what we've just heard, given the pressure on institutions nowadays and the challenges that she's just introduced, the institutional challenges, the ideological challenges that actually are an obstacle or are barriers to the work of the different actors. And in one of his interventions, Stefan said that too. As UNICEF, what can you do? And in relation with the different actors, how can you help improving working conditions in those two fields?
I really think a lot of amazing points have been raised by everybody. So I think just gonna give and I agree with the risk, the impact on rights and the politicization of everything that's going on, and the emotional response. And so if I give you an example now, it is an area of work where we work in, which has a lot of political trigger points. I want to give a concrete example of how we are, and I think it's really the multi-sectorial work can come together. And it's something we've done is cervical cancer is a big problem, drives mortality for women, but it's driven by a human papilloma virus, and you have a vaccine against it, HPV vaccine. When do you give it? To young girls before they start having sex. And so you target girls from 10 to 14 normally. So already there you can see it's a very complex discussion you need to have with the parents. And where do you find these girls? So do you find them in health facilities? Maybe not, because adolescent girls don't often go to health facilities, but you find them in schools. So we've been working on introducing HPV vaccines in many countries now to protect them from cancer later on, but they need to get access in the school. So we've been working through the school programs on bringing them the vaccines, but we don't only want to bring them the vaccines, we also want to bring them mental health. We also want to integrate it with menstrual health. Yeah, and in some countries, it's important to include HIV care for these adolescent girls that are so much at risk of catching HIV. So that's what we call an HPV plus approach. And for me, it's an example of how health and schools and health and education can really work together. We've done this now in quite a few countries with very good experience. And maybe that's also, it's an important point though, who is left out? And that's coming to Linda's point. We still have huge inequities because while this is a great approach to empower adolescent women and adolescent girls, the girls who are not in school are those that are most vulnerable to actually getting HIV. The girls that are not in school are most likely to not get vaccinated. They are most likely to not get any social support. So while it is while working together as these platforms is great, we are at risk of missing out these out-of-school girls. And so extra efforts need to be done. Indonesia has done it by using community volunteers to identify those girls, but it's really something to reflect because they are not in the school.
All right, thank you. Katrina, I wanted to stretch on this, but also addressing this other problem that has not been addressed here today, disinformation, which has a huge impact. Now you have Dr. Google, now you have Dr. ChatGPT, by the way, and you have some powerful actors who also question health, and they have a strong podium to do it. So it affects also the populations in the belief in the institutions that are supposed to help them. How are you confronted with this, and how do you deal with those things?
I hope that's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you asking me as an individual or as a representative from the institution?
As a representative from the institution, of course.
The reason I'm asking is because I feel that, or at ITM in general, we feel that since the COVID pandemic, there's a shift from global health, health for all, to health security. Let's keep people protected. We see that in programs, we see that in funding, and that really affects equality. because suddenly not everybody is equal. I get easier funding from a UK funder if I write in my proposal that I have to protect the UK population. So we are finding these problems. A lot of things since the pandemic, the reason why I've been saying individually or not, I spent the COVID pandemic in Tanzania. Tanzania didn't have COVID because COVID cannot live in the body of Christ. And if you eat a lot of onions, then you should be fine. And in Tanzania, I worked for 10 years in a really big education program, capacity building. And we know that the Tanzanian population in general has made massive strides in education in the last few years. There are many very, very experts, people with a lot of health expertise as well. So how could it happen that misinformation so badly affected a whole country and a whole population? And while I was in Tanzania, I was thinking, well, I'm only here. Maybe this is just this context. But I came to Belgium and I could see the same. Not with that exact example, but with other misinformation things. And I think this is something where education has a very, very strong role to play, because more educated people with more access to Google, Dr. Google and so on, they also tend to make sense and make things sound more logic. They're actually accessing the information in a different way. They don't believe everything anymore. They're reading the things if they're written logic, you end up with highly educated people that still ask me if I really believe in climate change. So I can't answer the question how to solve that. I think at ITM, what we are trying to do is to give different perspectives and to teach abstract thinking, logical decision-making, and evidence-based approaches. And I think this is basically from our side all that we can do to combat misinformation.
Indeed. Yes, it's okay. Sorry. Back to you. By example, when you hear this, for teachers, there is a big challenge because they face this new generation, right? And they are also transmitters of knowledge. When you see that these narratives, the narratives that have been addressed here, the narrative of being against, the narrative of not believing, the narrative of questioning those actual things, how do you talk about it in your organization, and what do you think are the challenges that teachers are facing concerning this? Because they are the front.
Yeah, this is a big one, and ironically, it's very tightly connected to what I said before about the teacher shortage. So we're looking at a situation where too many students are deprived of their right to a teacher, and a teacher who's both trained and qualified. And obviously, with the influx now of different tech tools, AI tools specifically, you do have a growing group of people arguing that, maybe there's a cheaper solution here somehow. Maybe we don't need to invest in all those real people because we could have these tools come in and sort it out for us. Ironically, I think the influx of the tools is only yet another argument for really investing in a workforce that is trained and qualified, that can actually bring in these tools in a way that is both pedagogically and ethically safe, And I think what we're looking at is the need to have a robust, quality, public education system. In large parts of the world, education is still privatized to some extent, particularly some level of education. Linda mentioned this. I think this is something we need to ensure that kids, regardless of their socioeconomic background, regardless of where in a country they grow up, regardless of where in the world they grow up, they have access to a school that meets these same quality standards. sometimes you meet these people that work in innovation and they are all about scalable solutions, you know? And I always laugh because the most scalable solution we have is public education systems. That's the way you reach all the kids at the same time. And it goes back to your point. And I think COVID, there's a lot to be said about COVID, but I mean, COVID did, I think, shift perception slightly when it came to that kind of broader recognition of the role of a school as a physical place that brings together a community and that represents safety for so many kids. So working with the profession also to understand the gaps, I think is a key piece here. So gaps in terms of curriculum and professional development. Are these issues covered well enough in the curriculum? Do we have enough health education? What about sex ed? And particularly in today's world, how do we ensure that we continue investing in sex ed that is of quality and that is provided at early enough a stage? You know, today we have a lot of classrooms where all the girls, they've had their period already. It's too late to start bringing it in pedagogically. So there's a big piece around curriculum, professional development. How can we make sure that the profession has a say in what they receive professional development in? Very often this is not the case. And that means that you have a gap between the needs as experienced in the classroom and then the good and well-intended work by other actors providing these different courses. And of course, goes without saying, professional development needs to be funded and some of it needs to be done in working hours because otherwise it's just an equation that doesn't work. And then of course, there's a limit to the influence of classrooms. You know, we rely on formal education to do a lot, but we do need to find ways of bringing together formal education and other actors. And I think your HPV plus approach, for instance, that does require considerable coordination across sectors and actors.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Calixto, when you hear this different intervention, and earlier you have in your keynote you stressed the importance of recognizing and respecting local communities and their approaches on resolving certain problems and forming a human community. How do you see the work that you do towards the different institutions, and what do you think is needed to be done to bring some progress?
Gracias. Para responder en
Thank
cortas
you.
palabras un poco
Well,
difíciles.
I will be brief, but it is difficult to be very brief to answer such a complicated question.
Es cierto que tenemos necesidades, situaciones bastante críticas.
While it's true that there are critical situations in different countries, local issues, tribal issues, and how can we improve education? For us, it is important that education starts at home, at the family unit. The education between parents and children is the pillar for us. Even before talking about investment or anything else. So it's not so much about getting to work, but to give a space for education, foresee a space for education between fathers, mothers, children. That's education at the earliest stage. At least it is for us as indigenous communities, where children go to school when they are 7. Before that age, they stay at home with their parents in the indigenous communities. So before they go to school, because they have they start knowing Western education, they understand our ancestral values. But how to go about it? Indigenous communities in different parts of Colombia, and that's what I'm talking about in Colombia. Well, we hardly receive any support from the government, and I don't want to talk about the government, but this is our reality. And we realized that there is investment, but it doesn't reach out to the final destination. And this is a complicated situation in Latin America. And now I'm working with local institutions because we need to improve the handling of all the governmental support. And we have here responsibility in Colombia. We need to act from the grassroots level and always within the family. Thank you. That's my answer.
Donc, vous savez que mon espagnol est très bon, hein? Donc, que j'écoute la très. Merci.
You know, my Spanish is very bad. Thank you very much, Calixto, for this intervention. Linda.
Senor Calixto, talking about his communities and the challenges that they are facing and the need that there is. How do you recognize in your work what Calixto has been pleading for here?
Thanks so much. I think what Calixto said is really important. They need to start from the local, they need to start from home, they need to start in communities. And I think it's always a powerful reminder that in our work, sometimes we're running advocacy in global policy spaces, but it's the stories from the community that actually carries our advocacy work. And it's really important, one, to make sure that communities are informed about what's happening in global policy spaces so that they can feed into those spaces. So for instance, on the issue of privatization, we've done a lot of work collecting stories about the impacts of the private sector push and for-profit education and healthcare, the impacts that these approaches are having in communities. And it's the stories of teachers, the stories of students, the stories of community members that we then took back to the World Bank and the IFC, and that then eventually, over many years, caused the IFC to divest from for instance, funding for-profit basic education. So I think the communities are really important. That's where the stories lie. We've heard of, especially when we're tracing the very direct impacts of some of these interventions. For instance, without communities would not have known that for-profit models were causing, schools to undertake shortcuts, for-profit schools to undertake shortcuts that then led to either child sexual abuse or led to issues such as children being injured in schools. Without communities wouldn't have known that patients' bodies were being detained because people were unable to pay bills. Without communities wouldn't have known about the unnecessary treatments and overprescribing that was happening in hospitals in a bid to maximize profit. So I think communities are the center. I think it's our role to make sure that they understand the global policy spaces, the power dynamics that are happening there, to understand the global interdependencies that I talked about, the fact that privatization is not only attacking health and education, it's attacking water, it's attacking issues of care, energy, food, housing, transportation, all things that they are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. And it's important for us to walk the journey of hope with communities. They have the solutions. I think Calixto touched on that. They are the ones who know if we're talking about AI, then I need to talk about what that means for the water situation in my context, right? I'm not going to use AI if I know that it's going to use more water than I'm going to use in a week, for instance. So that's just an example. So I hand it back to you, Omar.
Thank you for this great intervention. Benjamin, je reviens à vous. Voilà. Quelles sont les complémentarités que vous voyez entre les différentes interventions?
I'm coming back to you. What are the complementarities that you see between the different interventions?
So be ready, because my questions are sweet questions. I think that here you're going to hear some powerful questions coming. So, quelles sont les complémentarités que vous voyez entre ce qui a été dit ici?
What are the complementarities that you can see between the different interventions that you've heard? How can we secure more convergence for more efficiency, and in order to start finding solutions to the problems which the different organizations, communities, and structures are facing today?
Not an easy one, I think. So I think what's happening, and it's been alluded to, is we are having tremendous changes in the development sector, right? I mean, all the institutions, I mean, we talked about the budget cuts. We're going to see an increase in child mortality. We have seen a huge decrease, but it's going to increase because there's no funding. ARV was what we mentioned earlier on. You know, we know that the continued transmission of mother to child of HIV. So many new children are now born with HIV in many countries. You came from Tanzania. So it's just like inevitable, simple things that can be done are not done anymore. The whole development sector needs to change and is changing, and it will continue to change. So I think what we have to take this into account. We also have a really, in the global health space, I don't know how the education space is, but there's going to be mergers, there's going to be reduction in funding, and we need to become more efficient and effective. And I think maybe the opportunity is this multi-sectorial approach, because we're working in silos and there's opportunities to strengthen synergies. Absolutely. I think it's also really important to not forget that the most disadvantaged child needs to be addressed first. Yeah, still addressing inequities is really important. And then I think my biggest scare that has been brought up is misinformation. I mean, we are moving into a space where everything is politicized, and where what you said, like you trained people on evidence-based solutions, people question basic science, people question basic evidence. I think that's something where we don't have an answer yet as a society to that. So I think there's opportunities to address these things. But my main point is it will take us some time to adjust to this whole situation.
All right. By this open ending, I give the floor to the public. If you want to ask any question, I will make a mic turn around. I see one question there. Oh, you see, the enthusiast here. 1, 2, 3, and then I will come to you. So I will give the mic. You have mic here, yeah. Okay. Mic there. Yes.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you so much for the amazing conversations. My name is Mwangalai Kachana. I'm actually representing Join for Joy Zambia, which is also an NGO that works with many community teachers from rural schools. I'm actually from a low-income country. I'm from Zambia. I literally arrived like 2 days ago. And so I'm very happy to be here. And I think a lot of the conversations I found very easy to relate to my context. I have a contribution and a question. And maybe I'll start with the contribution. I agree very much with the importance of working with community leaders and community teachers, especially even when it comes to health. In my country, especially in rural communities, teachers, health workers, traditional leaders are the most respected in those communities. And if you ever want to get a message across the communities, those are the best people to use. So I do agree very much even with Catherine's approach about capacity building and working with emerging leaders. And I once had a conversation with someone who said, you know, you can't teach old dogs new tricks. So maybe don't focus on the old people, focus on the young. Now, that could arguably be true, but the truth also is if you're going to put old dogs and puppies in one space, there's a very high chance that puppies are going to be influenced by what the old dogs do. So the best approach maybe is to intervene in ways that benefit both the old dogs and the puppies. Sorry for that analogy, but it's the best I could use. So I do agree with that. And then getting to my question, and this is a question maybe for Antonia, and I hope it might not be too difficult to answer, but also to maybe create a bit of context. I've never met my grandfather before, but through my father, I knew that he was a teacher in his community. And from the stories I've heard, once upon a time, teachers were some of the most well-paid people in many rural communities. And over the years, I feel like that has changed. If you look at the context now, especially again in my country, Zambia, many teachers are not the most well-paid. And so you'd find that even people who are trying to get into the teaching sector are people who are only doing it like a last case scenario. I just don't have anything to do, so I'm going to become a teacher. And it's unfortunate because then these are the people who are impacting the next generation. So then they're not exactly motivated to even get into it. What is the best way to maybe work with governments and raise the profile once again for teachers and bring it back to a space where we can look at teachers as high profile, high respected people because of the amazing work that they have to do for children?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to just notify something. Make your question and your suggestion really short, so that we can have more questions. Thank you. But hold that one question. We have another one. I will take 3 questions and then I will give the floor to you.
Thank you. Pierre Mertens from Child Help. We are starting up a knowledge center on access to care. So we are much more in health because when there is no health, there is just no access to life. But we face a problem of financial cuts, but also financial cuts here. And I think this may be an opportunity if we are too often exporting, I think, our high-tech healthcare where we are doing too much. I think we can do less but better. Less but better also in healthcare. But then we are, and that's maybe a question for UNICEF, when you have evidence base, you said evidence base, but the evidence are built in the North, in American and in European universities. Well, it's just not payable. I'm fighting with neurosurgeons, we are educating neurosurgeons, I'm fighting with neurosurgeons because they don't want to put a shunt. It's just a simple device without a scan, but the parents cannot afford a scan. I like the metaphor of an ice cream. If you want to sell an ice cream, it should be affordable, not too far, and from good quality. Otherwise, you will not sell your ice cream. Well, I think that's the same in healthcare.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I will, and then I will come to back to the panel.
Merci. D'abord, je tiens, donc je
First
suis
of all,
Madame Bourlard à Rien, je travaille à
my name is Bourlard. I work at DGD and I am an anthropologist by training. I would like to wish a happy anniversary to Educate and Because Health. We started those platforms. So it is a 20-year event that is very important to us. Now, to join the optimism of that time, we already had trouble at that time. And to remain optimistic, I think we need to remain realistic, still having hope to catch the opportunities. And I think the day we are sharing today is a way to catch opportunities. It's more a reflection than a question because there are multiple. In a very holistic and philosophical and anthropological approach, I agree with Callisto's reflection when he mentions conscience. The question about education, health, the paradigm of cooperation to development. The question is, what type of society do we want? What type of house, so to speak? And we need to work more on a mutual understanding of what we do want according to the public notion compared to private. Earth is important, or land is important, because we are talking about the ownership of land. All these philosophical questions are dealing with our society construction model and deal with the issues we are encountering in our society today. Antonia and Benjamin, as you received a direct question.
Love the question, because I think in many ways this is the question. And you know, I think we can look at how notions of power and authority are changing and have changed, and that's locally and it's nationally, it's globally. I mean, geopolitically, let's discuss that over lunch. And much of this is really positive and really important. So I think we are seeing a situation in many contexts where indigenous perspectives, indigenous knowledge is more respected than it was before. But then we also do see changes in terms of exactly how you described it, how teachers are seen locally in their communities, but also the discourse in media, for instance, how we talk about teachers. And we do see an incredible decrease in the number of young people that would want to become teachers. We also see very low levels of teachers who would want their kids to become teachers, which is also an indication of something. And this means that we are looking at a profession that is struggling with basically missing colleagues. So we know that in sub-Saharan Africa, more than 90% of schools face significant shortages of colleagues. And if you do a difficult job, but you also have to do it without colleagues, then your job becomes even more difficult, because you're often doing the job of not just one person, but many people. And this has to do a lot with salary levels, with working conditions, but also with the notion of professionalism and professional autonomy and agency. So to what extent are teachers today trusted to do their job in the classroom?
Right.
And to what extent are we interfering with that? And then lastly, I think it's really important that we acknowledge that the global teacher shortage is in many ways a shortage of individuals who want to work with as teachers, whether they are young people who think about future careers or already part of the teaching workforce. However, the global shortage of teachers is also, in many countries in the global south, actually a shortage of positions. So it means that in many countries, you actually have trained and qualified teachers who cannot work as teachers because the government is not able to open up sufficient numbers of positions within the teacher workforce. This is about public budgets, but more than anything, this is about the International Monetary Fund and the work they do with countries. And they claim that it's not conditionalities, it's just recommendations. But what they effectively do is make it impossible for countries to increase their public workforce. So they make it impossible for countries to recruit teachers, recruit healthcare workers. Again, I think the two sectors are faced with the same challenge. And often it means that salaries are frozen or cut. So worsening the problem. And you and I can continue over lunch, maybe. Right. I see impatience here.
No, there's no impatience. So, Catherine before Benjamin, and then Benjamin.
Do I answer any question?
No, no. I think you were.
I would like to answer your question, and my. It's simply an opinion and experience based, maybe a little bit. So the question was, or the comment was that the high tech sometimes is blocking very often blocking more basic healthcare solutions. And I think, first of all, there's a really big difference between continents, certainly. Second of all, I think we have to, at ITM, we have learned that we need to incorporate and recognize local realities. And local realities, when you take your shunt into consideration, for example, very often has something to do with aftercare, care after a difficult operation. Very often the doctors do not want to do a difficult operation simply because it's not that they can't do the operation, it's that they know they cannot provide the right aftercare. This is something that comes in very, very simple forms, for example, with snake bite. The global north has been recognizing snake bite as a major problem all over the world, and therefore WHO has said it's now a priority, and we need to work on it. And what is happening is we're providing a lot of antivenom, and there's a lot of studies creating new antivenom. But the truth is that when somebody gets bitten by a snake, antivenom is just the first step. You need a lot of aftercare to actually save that person's life. And that's the same with the shunt. So actually recognizing local realities is one thing. That means that we really need the input. We need this co-creation again. We need the input from the people, from the health professionals in this area to tell us what the reality looks like. Also the reality with the scan, for example, that people say, without scan, I'm not going to do an operation. Very often I have seen in Tanzania that doctors actually do amazing things without X-ray, without scan. But another thing is that I've seen a lot of scanners in the back room, in the storage room, broken because of a small little thing, but unfortunately it can't be repaired because the warranty is not valid anymore. And therefore nobody comes to maintain. So there's some structural issues that could easily alleviate things like this. But again, we need to have connections, we need to have co-creations, also South-South collaboration, because in some countries, certain problems are solved or on the way to be solved, while in other countries, I think that's the same for education as well, actually. Health and education go together, and there's a lot of countries that have solved parts of it, but they are not being given the opportunity to exchange with countries that have the same problems. We see that a lot at ITM amongst our alumni, because when they then start talking to each other from different countries, building connections and so on. So yes, so with your shunt, I think there's a multitude of layers of problems. It's not just people don't want to do it.
Thank you.
That was a really amazing answer, and I can't even, but I'm going to go one step up on your question. And I think for me, the difference between education and health is, in health, we can rely on a lot of tools that solve problems. We can rely on commodities, on new vaccines, on new scanning devices. I don't think you have the same in education so much. But where there's 100% alignment is the community health workers and the teachers, the frontline people. In both, we're having major crises in both of these sectors. And coming to your question, so for me, I love innovations. I think there have been tremendous innovations in health that have saved lives and have worked. But I also see a huge amount of innovations that are pushed and are not demanded. So I think it's important to have a process. So UNICEF, we procure a lot, but we procure a lot that is really based on country needs and that's funded. And what we need to focus now on, and it's part of our strategy, is community health workers. So we see a huge gap in community health workers. And even if there are community health workers, and maybe it's the same in the teacher space, but many community health workers are not paid. They're not recognized. They're voluntary. 70% of them are women. For many women, these are the only jobs that they can have in certain of their communities. It's empowering them. And often they are running out of the basic anti-malaria drugs or the basic anti-venom, snake bites, or even ibuprofen or paracetamol. So it's like So one of our priorities is really community health workers to strengthen them, get them recognized by the government, get them paid, integrate them in primary health care. So for me, it's the issue about this innovation. It's in the crisis where we are with a funding crisis now. Where should the government put the funding? Sure, they buy expensive commodities, health commodities that serve a small part of the population, very important, or shall they invest the limited domestic resources in recognizing community health workers and giving them a basic salary? And I think these are the kind of questions that need to take place now at the country level, and that's really important.
Okay, thank you. Linda, your reaction to what has been said here? Before I
Well, a lot has been said, and three things sort of jumped into my mind. There's that saying that goes, you're sticking plasters on different parts of the body, but the body is not well. And it just made me think that we need to get back to the fundamentals, right? It's important, and that's a political question as well. Like, you can't talk about the lack of teachers and not ask about the political decisions that our leaders are making, and whose or what forces are forcing them into those decisions, as Antonia mentioned, in terms of austerity or the other things that are pushing them into those decisions. Another thing that stuck out for me is prevention is better than cure, right? It's important to start at the root. We can't be pushing a jobs agenda if we don't have quality education, if we're not teaching people the fundamentals in the right way so that they then become good workers, etc., etc. It's important to think about food and nutrition and housing and all these other sort of social determinants of health at the very basic level. And so I think it's important to force our leaders to come back to the fundamentals before thinking about the nice innovations and tech and all the shiny gadgets that we want to use in these spaces. So I think those are just my two brief comments.
Okay. Thank you. Calixto, you hear the different questions coming from the public and the interventions that have been done here. There are a lot of obstacles, institutional, especially even institutional, and big institutions are a little bit in crisis. And also, it seems that there is a narrative that is dominating people thinking and people actions. And in some ways, this has been said, community workers, recognizing the community expertise, as has been said here, and practices, because a snake bite, by example, in some countries, some communities can heal snake bites. But it takes aftercare, then you can have a collaboration there. So, and I think that Calixto has said it already, that there is expertise. So you hear a lot of things here, obstacles, but also solutions. Because when we look at the situation now, it looks a little bit cloudy, and we want some sunshine. How do you see this? How would you help us to project in the future, to look far, far away in front of us, and to be motivated to go there?
Todo lo que han dicho es muy importante.
Well, you have all said very, very important things. Everything that has been said, I've taken note of it.
Yo creo que es muy difícil responder.
It is very difficult to give an answer, like switching on a button and having light suddenly above us. But if you want to change human quality, we refer to our territory as the geographical space that is so important for us and for humankind. I think they need to have their habitat where they can live.
Un techo, eso sería como la solución. ¿Por qué? Porque hay mucha gente, muchísimas familias.
This could be the first solution because there's so many families with children that live out there on the road under a couple of cardboard boxes. So the solution should start by giving people housing. It is not the whole solution, but it is a start. I know many countries in Latin America where I have seen this reality of families living in cardboard boxes. I haven't seen this in Europe. There are people selling things on the street, but these are different experiences. And just to start, you would need to interiorize all of this within the family setting. And the rest will come by itself. We need to handle and manage help, aid, funds. Of course, we need to improve. Of course, we need to work with local leaders. That is very important. Without excluding the governments in different countries, they also have their importance because we want to have aid that is more effective. And those who want to support, they need to go and visit the place they want to invest on. They need to see it with their own eyes. If you want to invest and help a place, come and see the community. You know, you said that women play a very important role, but it is important that they make decisions where there are women. Women represent Earth, nature, and I think that they need to listen to them when making decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very nice. If I can maybe summarize what you said, I remember something that was said by somebody working for civil rights in a period that was rather hopeless. And he said, "We are the people we're waiting for."
We are the people we are waiting for. En fait, c'est nous. Et je pense que c'est l'appel de
So that's us. And that's Calixto core. It's us, the human, the population, the men, the women, the children, the old, the young. We are working, we are on the ground. It's us, it's about us. And when it comes to Stefan's core and Calixto's core, it's a call that is made to you and to us all, not to discourage ourselves, because we are the solution too. And we should all go on doing what we're doing. I will take two questions. Sorry for this philosophical nutshell. So two more questions, and I get back to the panel.
Yeah, very short question.
Two short questions.
From the University of Applied Sciences in Brussels. Very short philosophical question. There is kind of a double bind in what society is telling us, that everything has to go quicker, quicker, quicker. If I take the AI example, for example, and the water scarcity, and that change, we all know that change takes time. So how do we deal with that, with this?
Okay, thank you. Is one question? Yours?
Merci beaucoup et je remercie les experts et panélistes.
Thank you very much. I would like to thank the panelists. I would like to make a comment and then a question. Please, quick. My comment is that education and health are complementary. And without the one, you will not have the development of the other. I followed the ideas of these panelists, these experts, and I thought that their ideas were mainly oriented on initial training. Now, as a specialist in public health, I would like to ask them, what do you call community education, and what would you do for improving the population health? That's a short one. Thank you.
So, can you answer those two questions? I think the first question's there. Beautiful question. And the second here also. But short answers, please. I will start from here to here. And then to Linda. Huh?
Oh no, I was hoping it wouldn't be me. So that's a great question. And And I think what we do is both. You know, we're focused on a long-term goal, but we also recognize that in order to get there, there's the work that all of us do daily, and there are all those efforts, and there are all those amazing efforts that are done against all the odds, against the conditions under which they work in classrooms, in hospitals, across the globe. And I think that's something to keep in mind as we grapple with these massive challenges and also a world that is quite scary in many ways. And then I think there's a piece that I'm going to rudely just kind of insert here around
Short one.
It being a feminized workforce in both education and health, and what that means in terms of the impact of not just austerity policies, but the impact of health and education systems on the brink of insert whatever dramatic word works for you. I think we are punishing women in multiple ways. And I think this really needs to be acknowledged. By underinvesting in health and education, we are depriving women of employment opportunities and, importantly, opportunities for decent work.
Okay.
That means jobs that are good, where the conditions are good. But we are also depriving women of the healthcare they have a right to and the education that they have a right to, because we know that it's girls that end up being excluded in many ways when these financing decisions are taken. Right. And lastly, women are then punished in yet another way because they are the ones that are left with that burden of unpaid care work that is multiplied when public services are not doing what they are designed to do. So I just want to put that out there and remind all of us of the kind of misogynistic nature of these austerity policies.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Beautiful. I think I will just maybe reformulate the last question here about community work. He asked a question, interesting question, saying, what do you mean by community work? But maybe you can answer, but I would like also both of you to get there. So do you think it's an important question that to really, when people say, who do they think are community workers? And what do they mean by this? And do you feel that your community is taken serious as an actor to help certain challenges, face certain challenges?
A ver, como pueblo de una cultura originaria.
I come from an original indigenous people, and we always think that we are not an object that came to Earth. We need to value the presence on Earth in the physical body, and then comes all the rest. And this is how we found courage for our existence within the chaos and violence. What I mean is that I live with my spirit and my physical body, period. This is very important for us. And then we can speak about peace, harmony, needs, and responsibilities, and our roles as men and women and children, how we can prepare them. This is our force. Therefore, we need to take into account our origin, our ancestors, and see where I come from. This is our reality. Because I don't want to be anything else than what I am. And this applies to all humanity.
Thank you. I think it's a good transition. When you don't know the community,
one doesn't
can
know the
you value
communities,
them
how
and can
can
you
we
consider them
enhance their
as
value and participation? How can we get to
as
see them
partners?
as equal partners?
Do you think?
So, what do you
Do you
think?
think so?
And
While
also
answering
maybe
to
by
the
trying to
gentleman's
answer
question, I'm not sure I got
previous
it
speaker's
right.
question. I'm not sure I have understood the
So
question
maybe
well.
I
So my
will not
answer may
provide
not
a
be
good answer.
relevant.
Alors, j'ai compris comment peut-on éduquer au niveau communautaire. Et je vais vous donner un exemple ici de la question de l'eau et de l'égouttage. L'une des interventions les meilleurs marchés dans la santé, c'est l'eau et le savon. Mais il y a beaucoup d'écoles qui n'ont pas d'eau ou pas de sanitaire. Donc, comment éduquer les enfants de l'avenir à utiliser le savon et l'eau? C'est très simple. Et si on veut avancer au niveau communautaire, eh bien, c'est une intervention où on peut vraiment rassembler beaucoup de points importants en un. Donc, comment peut-on rassembler les choses au niveau communautaire?
I think the question was a bit different, wasn't it?
I think the question is
I would like to
different.
ask you please to
What
reword
do you
it, to
think
repeat
as
it. What do you mean
community,
when you speak
right?
about community? I can't hear. The community part of the question has not been taken into account in your interventions. Well, I'll give the floor to Catherine and then we'll come back to you and then Linda.
For me, community, it's changed a bit throughout my career with more experiences. And what I now see with community, educating communities, goes away from the telling everybody to wash their hands with soap and water or telling them to go to a hospital with certain illnesses. And it changed into basically my own experience then is, well, soap and water is lovely. Knowing that you should use soap and water is lovely. Getting a bucket to put this water in and getting soap is also really nice. But if you live in a country where the bucket is gone after a day, then this is completely pointless. Giving children in schools a lot of awareness about rabies and the importance, the dangers of dog bites and the importance of vaccinating your dog is really lovely, but not if you do it in a culture where the child does not tell the parents when there is not a when there's not a dinner. Oh, what have you learned in school today? You know, when there is no, it's just a different culture, a different connection. So therefore, I now change these things. I now want to work with community leaders, that is religious leaders, that is village elders, that is teachers, and that is also, for example, traditional healers. We have a lot of traditional healers that are filling the gap that is left by the public health services. And we don't just have that for humans, we also find a connection with veterinarians. So we do not have veterinary health services, and that actually affects the communities and the community health because of all sorts of links between those two. But when I talk about working with communities, I really mean working with the village elders, the traditional healers, the teachers, not just the doctors, not just the people with university degrees, but with the people in the community.
Yes. Thank you.
Sometimes, just very quickly, sometimes the people from the north, such as me, are not the best people to be the bridge and the interface. What means there have to be other ways.
Yes, thank you. Linda, a short reaction to this?
Thank you. So I don't want to repeat what's been said. I think it's very important to work with community leaders. I think someone in the audience even mentioned how at one point teachers were really important. And so if those are the people who are important in a community, then it's important to go through them, or the village elders or the church leaders or whichever sort of important people the community feels are important. I think that's important. It's important to use other means like community radio and sort of local media it's also important to look at the use of technology such as TikTok. It's amazing in Kenya how far TikTok has gone, even in rural settings. And so it's important to talk to community members about how they feel they should be reached, and then to apply it accordingly. And I think it's also important to draw a very fine line between the problem you're presenting, what it means for them, and the future that they want. Like for us, it's been a struggle discussing issues of privatization when public systems are failing and disappointing communities. But then we have to draw a fine line between what does it mean to opt out of the public system and what does that mean for the future of their children, and have a conversation about that in languages that they understand. So I think just to add to the one point, I think someone asked about like how do we deal with the pace of change, and Antonia touched on the need to have a short-term and long-term approach, but I also want to emphasize the need to work together. Solidarity and collaboration is especially key, especially in this time where even us as the NGO sector are being faced with enormous cuts. There's no way we can make an impact if we don't work together and across the lines. And I think it means just more conversations, less competition, even for resources, and just more of an attitude towards collaborating.
Thank you. Thank you for this call to action. And we're going to use this transition to say that that's exactly what Educate, the platform Educate has been doing. Thanks to the help of Because Health, Annabelle, EMT, collaborating, creating more space for exchange. And this is the exact purpose of the day-to-day, and 15 years, but more years to come. Thank you, Antonia. Thank you, Calixto. Thank you, Benjamin. Thank you, Catherine. Big applause to them.